What up, YouTube? This is Steven, and I want to sound off on the Colin Kaepernick situation about him not standing for the national anthem. And as well, I want to speak a little bit on Gabrielle Douglas's situation involving her not standing for the national anthem as well. And I'll start with Gabby's situation since it happened first, and I have more to say about Colin's situation. All right, so during the Olympics, the national anthem played, and Gabrielle Douglas did not stand for the national anthem, and immediately, you know, white supremacists attacked. Like, why isn't she standing for the national anthem? She's representing the United States. You know, seemingly, on the surface, it may not seem like, okay, it's white supremacy. It's just, really people who are proud of their country and want someone to be proud of their country, of the same country that they're representing in the Olympics. Seemingly it seems innocent, right? But when you have these same people, leaving racial pejoratives and racial slurs on Gabby's Twitter page and other social media pages, then you start to really look at things. You start to analyze things a bit more. And Gabby didn't stand, but then once people started going in on her, she sort of like backtracked and started saying, she loves the United States of America. And then I think she like posted a picture of her like hugged up in the flag. I think it may have been animated. But I was at this point now, I'm like, okay, Gabby, like, why? It's like, okay, either she should do it and go full force with it or not do it at all, because now she sort of made herself a target. If you weren't going to go full force with it, then you should have just, stood up for the national anthem and just went along to get along. You know what I'm saying? And also, I think she may have been afraid that people were going to take away her endorsement deals over this because, I'm pretty sure that helps pay the bills for her, the endorsement deals, because the Olympics is just like a one-time, not a one-time thing, but, like once every 4 years, So I know the Olympics ain't really paying her bills. Those, endorsements, and I'm sure those are, some nice paychecks. But again, like, I don't know if it was her intention not to stand on purpose, or either she just forgot to stand for some reason while everyone else was standing. But again, I'm like, okay, didn't you kind of think this was going to possibly happen, though? I think for me, I just wish that she would have gone full force with it if she did it. Like, she should have gone full force with it if she was going to do it. Kind of like, don't do it, but then, backtrack. Because then it's just like, it's just, it really just puts you in sort of like a weird position, because now the spotlight's kind of like on you, when really she should have just either stood up and, went along to get along, or either sat down and, went full force with it, and then said and stated the reasons why she's taking a stand to sit down, So yeah, like a lot of people wind up attacking Gabby Douglas over her not standing for the national anthem, and really, Gabby is sort of like an easy target. She's a woman, she's black, so she is sort of an easy target to attack, because I did hear about, I'm not sure of this though, but I just heard about it. Donald Trump not standing for the national anthem. And I'm like, okay, he's trying to be the president of the United States, but he's not standing for the national anthem. But I didn't see people really going in on that though, you know. And also, you know, Donald Trump was like critical of like veterans or like a veterans family or something. Very recently, I didn't see like a lot of these same people going in on that either. So I'm like, is there two sets of rules now? Like, is there like a rule for like black people and a rule for white people? You know, asking as if I didn't know already. um, but I think I said all I have to say about the Gabby Douglas situation. So let me go into the Colin Kaepernick situation. All right, so Colin decided not to stand for the national anthem during a football game or whatever. And some people in the media, you know, I think he's been doing this a couple of times now, you know, a while. And a representative of the media asked him, you know, why isn't he standing? You know, like what, you know, why aren't you standing for the national anthem? And I don't think people were expecting the response that they received from him, you know. But basically, he said that he's taking a stand for people who don't have a voice. You know, taking a stand by not standing for people who do not have a voice. So basically, he's doing it to kind of like bring attention to the people who don't have this platform, you know, and also bring attention to police brutality, you know. And he did mention that, you know, black people and other people of color are being, you know, pretty much just shot down in the streets, and these police officers are not being held accountable for what they're doing. They're getting off. There's always some type of a loophole for them to get off, either through a law or something like, oh, I was threatened, and oh, it says here in, you know, section 00.5 or whatever that if a police officer feels threatened, he can shoot, or, you know, some crap, you know, some little loophole law. Or either, you know, the criminal, well, not criminal, the person shot has some like a criminal record or something. So, oh, that justifies it now. You know, he was a threat, you know, because of his criminal record, etc., etc. Well, Colin's he wanted to take a stand and sort of, you know, advocate for those people and you know, to an extent, you know, go to bat for those people, you know. Predictably, white supremacists were outraged and they're, you know, going crazy, you know, doing the usual, going to his social media pages and, you know, typing racial slurs and racial pejoratives on his page, despite the fact that he is, you know, quote unquote, half white, as Tommy Loren pointed out. And it's probably a lot of other white people like to point out, you know, he's half white. But, you know, take a notice that though. When a situation like this come up, when a mixed race person wants to speak out on the behalf of black people and advocate for them and go to bat for them and, you know, whatnot, these, you know, low-key white supremacists want to point out that he's half white. You know, oh, he's half white. Like they did with Jesse Williams when he made that speech at the BET Awards. They like to point out that he's half white. But any other time, white people, majority of the time, say that person is half black. They don't ever say it as half white. Notice the vocabulary right there, because it's emphasizing something, like half black emphasizing blackness, half white emphasizing whiteness. And they want to, in this case, they want to emphasize Colin's whiteness in order to silence him, you know, to make it so it's like, you know, you're half white. So basically, you know, what are you talking about? You're not, you know, black, you know. But the thing is, he didn't say he was doing it for himself. He said he was doing it for other people who don't have a voice, you know. And also they were throwing around that, you know, he makes like, you know, millions upon millions of dollars a year, you know. Basically, he's rich. So, you know, what do you have to complain about? And the thing is, like, even back when, you know, it was legal to, you know, not uphold the rights of black people, to violate black people's civil rights. Even when it was like in its heyday, there were still some rich black people. Jack Johnson, for example, he was rich. The boxer, Jack Johnson. Yeah, I think his name, Jack Johnson. I think that's his name. He was rich, but he was still oppressed. I'm sure that what's her name? Madam C.J. Walker. She was rich. She was the first female millionaire, black or white, in the United States, and I'm pretty sure she was still oppressed despite being rich. Wealth does not equal freedom. Freedom, or freedom from oppression. I mean, it does help you sort of navigate society a bit better by having wealth, but you're at the end of the day, you're still like, if you're black and you're rich, you're still subjected to the same things that a regular black person is subjected to, though. The wealth doesn't protect you from police brutality. The wealth doesn't protect you from the educational system being biased towards black people, promoting primarily white males in the education system to learn about, as well. It doesn't protect you from media bias as well. Notice how they treat people in the media, the Dylan Roof situation. When that happened, so many human interest stories about him came out to humanize him. I don't think those same people didn't do human interest stories for his victims. His victims are human, but they didn't. Those same people didn't do human interest stories for his victims, But back to Colin Kaepernick. I sort of went off on a tangent there. My bad. But back to Colin Kaepernick. So yeah, unsurprisingly and predictably, white supremacists, low-key white supremacists, and suspected white supremacists were outraged. You need to stand for our national anthem. What is this blackie or half a blackie or whatever doing? Just all sorts of just ignorant, racist stuff, which is proving his point that this really needs to be done and really needs to be brought to people's attention. It pretty much just proving his point by being racist on his social media and stuff. However, I do want to speak on the criticism that Colin received from the black community, because you would think that the black community would be pretty much on the same page as he is, but some people aren't, and some people may have some valid reasons for thinking that way, and some people just may be on a whole nother thing. All right, so one of the reasons that some black people have issues with Colin speaking out is because Colin is he's not quote unquote black, he's biracial, he's mixed, so why is he speaking out? And I will say that, Cynthia G brought up a good point in one of her videos where it's white supremacy will use anyone to advance their cause. White people, white supremacy will use, pretty much, will use black people to advance their cause. And they'll use, again, anybody, anything to advance their causes. They're not going to be overly concerned about that as long as you are on the same page as them, So when people are kind of going in on Colin for being biracial and speaking out, then it's well, ideally we would want people to use their status and privilege to speak out and advocate for people who do not have that that status or that privilege, because again, some people may argue that, okay, Colin has light skin privilege, he's mixed and he's light, he has a very light skin tone, he doesn't look like quote unquote the typical black person or the typical black man, quote unquote. And there's privilege with that, because of the white supremacist society we live in. He looks a bit more palatable to white people. And, I haven't heard Colin speak out about light skin privilege or, colorism or anything like that. But he is speaking out on, you know, behalf of the black people who don't look like him. That's really, he's putting himself out there, you know, for criticism, for, possibly violence. Who knows, Hopefully it doesn't get to that point, but you don't know how that can turn out, though, when you step up and make yourself a target by speaking out against white supremacies. Because when you call out white supremacy, you do become a target, you know? Like, white supremacists target you when you call out white supremacy. And the thing is, Colin didn't even mention white people, though. That's the thing. But the thing is, as the old saying goes, a hit dog will holler. So these white supremacists feel like they've been hit. So they're hollering. And some people feel that Colin is doing this just to sort of protect himself from being cut from the 49ers. And that could be a possibility, it is a possibility that he could be doing this for that reason. A lot of times people, I'm not saying Colin is one of those people, but a lot of times people do sort of ride the pro-black wave to get money from it, to benefit from it financially in some way. Hopefully that is not Colin's, goal, Hopefully, I don't think that is, hopefully it's not, but I don't think that is his goal. For what I've been hearing, I heard that Colin, I think Colin may have just wound up being wind up waking up, quote unquote, waking up, becoming more socially conscious about, the things that are going on in society and how white supremacy and white supremacists play a role in a lot of the things in society that are, problematic. And, Colin, from what I've heard in the rumor mill, he is dating a Black Lives Matter activist. And he converted to Islam. And also I noticed that he's growing out his hair. So maybe, I think that Colin may be, awoke. He may be woke, And I think that may be the reason why he's doing this at this point, And, I'm happy that, Colin would take a stand. But there were some football players, I think Victor Cruz was one of them. And Cam Newton was another one who kind of sort of criticized him, though, But at the end of the day, I think that Colin, I feel like, his heart is in the right place. I think he's trying to do something that's right. I don't think he's trying to do this for publicity or to, ride the wave of pro-blackness to benefit from it financially. I feel like that. I could be wrong. To be fair, I could be wrong. But I feel like maybe it's just, Colin. He probably just, woke up and just just things started flashing back to him. And as well, Colin did grow up. He grew up in a majority white family, so he possibly grew up in a majority white community as well. Who knows his experience with racism? We really don't know for sure. We don't know what he went through. People are quick to really just, black people in particular, but also some white people like to kind of do it too. Just quick to assume that, the life for, mixed and biracial people is like a crystal staircase. Like, that person didn't experience any type of racism because, historically looking back, I hate to go back to the slave days, but you got to go back, light skinned mixed people were oppressed along with dark-skinned black people. Both groups were oppressed and are still oppressed. But the thing is, the oppression is a little different, and I think that's the issue with people. It's kind of like sometimes it just seems like because of light skin privilege, some people could argue that, well, are you really that oppressed? But then again, it's like, well, you could be the privileged people of an oppressed group. You know. So yeah, it kind of gets tricky when you start falling into like colorism. Um, but again, I haven't heard Colin speak out about colorism. Perhaps it's coming up in the future. Who knows? But I did hear that his biological mom did speak out and shamed him for speaking out. Speaking out, well, sitting out during the national anthem. And I'm like, really? Really, biological mom? You really want to point the finger at Colin for taking a stand by not standing for the national anthem? Well, the thing is, like, maybe if you raised him instead of giving him for adoption and having another family raise him, maybe he wouldn't be sitting out of the national anthem. Maybe if you have did your job as a mom, maybe this wouldn't be happening. Since you're so concerned all of a sudden now. And from what I've heard, I don't think Colin even has anything to do with her. I heard that she came around once he got famous and rich. And you know how that goes. A lot of times people do like to come around when you're famous and rich. And especially when his mom was the person that should have been putting in the most work. Along with his father too. But she didn't put in any work to get him where he is. So she shouldn't really be trying to even enjoy any of his privileges. And really, if she was really smart, she would just support him. Either she would support him because she agrees with him, or she would support him because she wants to kind of get in his good graces. But apparently she's a low-key white supremacist, probably, low-key white supremacists somehow find a way to procreating with black people for some reason. From what I've heard, I think she gave up her son Colin for adoption because I think that the family didn't really want her to have, a half-black child and raise a half-black child, and she did what her family wanted. And, hey, she missed out on the lottery. Yeah. Hey, she missed out. Now, the lottery is for the family, the white people who raised him, the family who raised him. Not for the biological mom who gave him up for adoption and wants to speak out when he is taking a stand for something, and he is speaking out on behalf of other people. But I'm not sure where this is going to go. I think Colin is continuing to do, to sit out of the national anthem. And who knows where this is going to go for sure. This could just end right here, or he could go all the way with this, and become like the next Muhammad Ali or something. I'm not sure how this is going to go, though. Hopefully, I would like to see him, continue. Continue to take a stand. Continue to call out white supremacy. Continue to take white supremacy to task. But the thing is, he didn't really call out white supremacy, though. Not directly, though. That's something he could do in the future if he so pleases. But, when he does that, white supremacists going to be quick to say he's half white, and some coonerific black folk going to be quick to say he's a half-breed, he's mixed, he's biracial, yada, yada, yada. More silencing language, pretty much. Just tactics to silence him, yeah. So pretty much, I think I've spoken on all the things I wanted to speak about, because I addressed the white supremacists. I addressed the black people who had criticism. Oh yeah, one more thing I want to mention is that veterans, from what I heard, are standing behind Colin's decision not to stand during the national anthem. These people love to say, "Oh, he's not standing." People fought and died for this country and stuff. Well, these are the people, the veterans who fought, and they seemingly are taking a stand behind them, from what I've heard. So, checkpoint for them. And also, one more thing I want to mention before I go: people are burning his jerseys. To me, that is so like borderline savagery. Like these people who are burning his jerseys. I really think that if this was like back in the day, like 60 or 70 years ago, these would be the same people probably trying to lynch him or lynching him. After church, you know, purely for enjoyment, and then taking a picture and slapping it on a postcard and sending it to the grandma. I really think that those people who are burning those jerseys would probably be doing that, what I just said, lynching him. Because, you paid money for that jersey. So why not just either try to resell it or just throw it away or something? Like, it seemed like a kind of like violence, or at least a threat of violence. But again, white supremacists love to resort to violence to advance their causes. What else is new? They've been doing that since they got here, right? Well, I think I've said pretty much all I have to say. So thanks a lot for watching. Feel free to comment. Feel free to subscribe. Feel free to give me a thumbs up. Your feedback and support are extremely appreciated and extremely valued. Until the next video, adios and goodbye for now. Well, before I go, there's another thing that I want to mention. And this is from that Tomi Lahren chick that's been pretty much trending every time she talks about black folks ever since she talked about Beyonce performing at the Super Bowl and how she didn't like it and she was going crazy and pretty much just whining over Beyonce giving a salute to the Black Panthers as well. Jesse Williams calling out police brutality, and Colin doing what he just did, sitting during the national anthem. Yeah, that Tomi Lahren chick, she had the nerve to say that if Colin doesn't like America, that Colin should leave. Like, he can leave. Well, the thing is, Tomi Lahren and other white supremacists, or low-key white supremacists, are suspected white supremacists. The thing is this: you really need to remember your origins. Remember where you come from. You're not indigenous to the Americas at all. No part of the Americas. You're not indigenous to North America, South America, Central America, Latin America, United States of America, Middle America. None of the Americas at all. You're indigenous to Europe. You stole this land from indigenous people. Like, you're not the people who can say who can leave, who should leave, or who needs to leave. Like, really, considering all that took place in history because of, white supremacists coming over here and doing what they did, coming over, spreading disease, using violence to advance their cause, raping, brown and black women, declaring genocide against Native Americans, enslaving African people to work on plantations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Considering all that, perhaps you should just go back to Europe, Despite what people may think, like America, none of the Americas belong to you, None of them. So you are not in the position to say who should leave and who should go. So again, remember your history. Remember where you come from. You're not indigenous to this place. You don't have a right to tell someone that they should leave, especially when that person has a long history in this country, just like you do. Well, maybe. I don't even know Tomi Lahren's heritage. She may have just came over during the immigrant wave of the 1900s. Her family may have come over. during the 1900s. I don't know if her family was part of the Mayflower or what. I don't know. But regardless, still, again, I just really wanted to point that out because that really just triggered me to hear her saying that, because I'm like, this is like, we really need to learn some history here. We really need some history because a lot of white people, especially white supremacists, like to really kind of like shy away from their history, at least the part about them, their violence and, savagery and, demonicness, But the thing is, like, in order for us to really, have peace, liberty, and justice for all, like, white people are going to have to start facing their demons, They really are. And once white people do that, I think that will set the tone for the rest. They're going to have to start facing up to their history as well and owning it and finding a way to rectify it. But I'm not holding my breath for that. But again, thanks a lot for watching. Feel free to comment. Feel free to subscribe. Feel free to give me a thumbs up. Your feedback and support are extremely appreciated and extremely valued. Until the next video, adios and goodbye for now.